Yes, ma'am.
Yay, great. Thank you. All right. Well, as I said, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be mapping our way through levels E, F, and the tutoring fraction book. So if that's what you're here for, you're in the right spot. All righty. Let's get going. And I will have time at the end if you have questions. So if you can save them till then, that's great. Or you can stick them in the chat. Marin will be monitoring the chat as well. Okay, so let's first talk about some of the formatting and whatnot that are common to both levels. Okay, so level E is equivalent to 4th grade and level F is equivalent to 5th grade. And this means that they cover all of the concepts that are expected to be covered in 4th and 5th grade. But I want you to know that they also cover some concepts from the next grade and even 2 years ahead. So for example, if your student is going into level E, they will be encountering concepts not only meant for 4th grade, but also a little bit from 5th and even a little bit from 6th grade. Okay. So each book starts with review lessons. And if you're new to Right Start, please take your time and go over these lessons. They are designed to catch you and your student up on the methods and materials and strategies that we use in Right Start and that are rather unique to Right Start. These lessons are also helpful if you've taken a long summer break and you all are a little rusty. It doesn't hurt to go ahead and do these review lessons. And then the other person who would want to use the review lessons, even though they've already done level D, for example, or level E if you're going into F, would be if you want a nice soft start to your school year. So low stress, just reviewing concepts, and then you can actually take off. That's actually the method I choose often with all my subjects. It's just a nice soft start. Okay. Now those who don't need it would be the people who do school all year round, right? Because you're already working with Right Start. So as long as you're not taking huge breaks, a week or two is fine. But if you're taking 2 months off, then you might want to consider using them. Okay. Another thing that is really important and is available for all of our levels, A through F, are the overview videos. Okay. And if you want access to those are free to all of you, and they will help you teach the lessons. So what I would do with these overview videos is I would maybe Sunday night when I'm looking at the week ahead, I would watch the next 4 lessons and just get ideas and tips on how to teach those lessons. And also, it'll just cover those areas where you might run into a glitch. If this happens, you could do this, that kind of a thing. So they're helpful. They're not videos that you can sit your kids in front of, but they're great for you as the teacher. And you can access them by going to the Right Start Math homepage. So that's rightstartmath.com. And you scroll over and click on resources. Actually, the easiest way I find to use this is to just hover over resources, but you can do it either way. Hover over the resources and you will find teaching support. Once you click on that, the first thing that comes up are the weekly overview video support. You go ahead and click on those, and then you can select whichever level you're in and what lessons you want to look at. So you may not need these overview videos for every single lesson, but you may come across a lesson and you're like, never heard of that before, not sure how this is going to go. And then you can go ahead and watch those lessons. So it's not, certainly not a requirement, but it's a resource out there for you in case you need it. All righty. The other thing that we have on our website, by the way, the website has a lot of really nifty resources. The blogs are really great. The Dr. Cotter On series is really good. But another thing that we have is a list of games that are covered in each level. So why would you need that? Well, not normally, would you, right? So you can just be working along through the lesson book and it'll tell you what games to play. But what if you decide to take a break? Maybe the grandparents are coming for a visit and you don't really want to be doing school during that time, but you sure would love for your kids to be playing games with their grandparents. Maybe you just had a baby, maybe you've been sick, any of those things. You can just go to this quick list of games and those will help keep the kids fresh on their math facts. So how do you get to those? You can access these lists by going to the homepage once again, clicking on or hovering over resources, going down to teaching support, just like before. And this time you scroll right on past those overview videos until you reach RS2 game list. Click on that and you can choose whatever level that you're working on. In this case, levels E and F would be appropriate. Alrighty. The other thing that we have are game instruction videos. Now, all of the game instructions are actually in your Math Card Games book. So if you can read for instruction and really enjoy that format, go for it. That is what we have available in our Math Card Games book. However, if you would prefer to have a more visual guide on how to play the games, we do have game instructions from each level available on Vimeo. So that's a month-to-month subscription. You can, purchase 1 month and stop the next. So it's not like you're locked into a whole year's subscription. If you would like to see samples of them before purchasing the subscription, there is a free 6 sample pack that is available. Let me show you how to get those. Okay, so back to the home page. Go ahead to Games. Click on that, scroll down, and you will see it's highlighted as a hyperlink, instructional videos and sample pack. So that will help you get started with getting those games going. Because as we know, or maybe you don't know, but you will now, games are super important if you're using WriteStart. Okay, I'm also going to talk about roadblocks in general. I'm not going to go through each book and talk about roadblocks because I think that they can really be categorized into about 3 different things. So some things that can become roadblocks for you are rushing through lessons when your student is not catching on to the concept. Okay. So what do we do then? If your student is struggling with a concept, one of the very easiest ways to deal with this that I found as a homeschooler was to take a break for 1 or 2 days. Sometimes the weekend is good enough. If you happen to run into a struggle on Friday, which would be nice, right? Then you can have the weekend off. And sure enough, they come back Monday morning and all of a sudden things have gelled in their brain and they're able to really understand the concept that you thought they were failing at, right? So that's one idea. Another idea is to, and if you're taking a break of a couple of days, make sure you're still playing games to just keep their brain going, but you're not necessarily focusing on what they were struggling with, okay? If you find that your student is struggling more than what you think is normal, because really, new concepts, oftentimes kids are going to struggle with that, and that's perfectly normal. But if it's taking longer or you're noticing things that you're just not sure of, please feel free to reach out to us. We are more than happy to give you ideas, to walk you through the problems, to maybe highlight things that you hadn't noticed or considered. So at the end of the presentation, I will have all the contact information that you'll need for that, but I really do encourage you to take advantage of that. Alrighty. The next topic for roadblocks would be removing manipulatives too soon. Now, this is a temptation if you think, for example, that your student is using the abacus too much. And is it possible that a student latches on to a manipulative and just uses it longer than they need to? Yeah, it is possible. It's not typical. What typically happens is that the student uses the manipulatives, uses them, and then finally they're like, oh, actually, my brain is faster than this particular manipulative, whatever it happens to be, the fraction chart, the abacus, the math balance, those kinds of things. So in general, you don't really have to be worried about it. I would say the bigger mistake is to think that there's a problem and take the manipulatives away too soon, because that causes your students to resort back to techniques that they might have used before, like counting on fingers, okay, which is not something that we really want them to do because it's not a very efficient strategy, okay? So thinking that you have to take them away too soon can be a problem. If you really are concerned that, okay, there is no way that they should be using an abacus for this anymore, and you really believe that that has been an extensive period of time, you can wean them off of manipulatives by saying, okay, let's do this problem with the manipulative, and then let's just set it aside. They can look at it, for example, the abacus, but they don't touch it. Let's try the next problem without using the abacus or whatever it is they're using, okay? So there's an idea for that. And then the third roadblock is the temptation to put off games. Now, we all know that we're extremely busy, and it is very tempting to say, you know, I'll get to those games tomorrow or Friday or this evening or whatever it happens to be. And it's fine. You don't have to play the games right after the lesson. You know, say you have math in the morning and you decide you're going to play the games after dinner. That is perfectly acceptable. There's no reason why you shouldn't do that. That's fine. However, if you find yourself doing this, putting it off, that's a problem. Okay. The games are not fillers. They're not something to keep your kids busy while you do something else. They really are an integral part of the learning process. So please, please, please do not fail to play the games. They are so important. And, you know, oftentimes we say, go ahead and skip the lesson. If you have to skip something, skip the lesson, but don't skip the game. Okay. Hopefully you're not skipping anything, but there's a idea there. Okay. Let's look at what you're going to need for level E. If you already have the Right Start math set, you will only need the book bundle. But if you are new to Right Start, you will need both the book bundle and the math set. Remember, the math set lasts until your youngest child hits high school algebra. Okay, so it's a one-time purchase, one purchase per family. You may want an extra thing here or there, like an extra abacus, but it's not essential unless maybe you're teaching, you know, twins or kids in the same level. All righty. Now let's look at pacing. How are you going to get through this book in one school year? There are 140 lessons in level E. And if you complete 4 lessons per week, I would use the 5th day to play games. That would be like extra games, not just the games that were assigned per lesson, but to go ahead and bring those games forward and play them, say, on Friday. Okay. So if you play or if you teach 4 lessons per week, you will be done with the book in 35 weeks. Okay. Since most states require you to have 180 days of instruction, you have plenty of time to finish this book. You have 40 extra days to play extra games, camp out on a lesson for a little bit, especially if they are either struggling or really love the lesson, right? Let's go ahead and feed their love and recognition of the beauty of math. So you do have some leeway in there to get all the lessons in and still meet your 180 days. Okay, what does this level cover? Well, in level 4, in level E, 4th grade, you will cover these topics that I'm going to list and many more. Okay, so this is just kind of a high-flying overview of what is covered. So 4-digit addition and subtraction, multiplication of 4-digit numbers by 2-digit numbers, also 1, obviously, but we work our way up to 2. Division of 4-digit numbers by 1-digit numbers, including remainders. Fractions, the adding, subtracting of fractions and the comparing of them, and also working with mixed numbers. We covered decimals in tenths and hundredths, and also percentages. We look at factors and prime numbers. Okay, remember this is a 4th grade equivalent book, so that's pretty advanced. We also cover order of operations and word problems that deal with area, distance, capacity, weight, and time. Now, the scenic byways component of this presentation are those lessons where either children really, really love these lessons and talk about them for quite a while because they're so enjoyable, or are unique concepts that are not well and widely known, right? So let's look at some of those. The first one that I have listed are number puzzles and magic squares. Those are super fun. The kids really enjoy them, and they start looking at the world with a different set of eyes. They realize that math is actually all around them and that it can be super fun. The next idea are check numbers. Now, you might not have heard of these before. They have been used for a great long time. If you want more information about them, you can go to our homepage and then just use the search function and type in check numbers. Okay. And then once you do that, it'll come up with a couple of articles about check numbers. The one I really found helpful was What Are Check Numbers by Kathleen and Dr. Cotter. This particular one I think is really helpful in understanding how check numbers work. Okay. Let's see. Alrighty. The next concept are multivides. Now, multivides can be quite a struggle for some kids because they can be very long. If you're finding that your student is really struggling with multivides and is beginning to hate them, I would suggest making them shorter. And this article will tell you how to do that. But it also explains what multivides are. So go ahead and use the search function again. Type in multivides and you'll come up with Dr. Cotter on multivides. So this article is an excellent explanation of how they work. All right, some other really great concepts that the kids very much enjoy are the geometric drawing lessons, learning how to draw reflections of a figure, and then classifications of geometric figures. Isometric drawings are super cool. Here's an example of one of them. So the students will build stairs with tiles shown at the top, and then they will translate that onto paper so that they're drawing these isometric drawings on graph paper. Okay. And in this year, since it's an Olympic year, I will focus on the fact that they learn how to draw Olympic rings. That's a very cool project, especially in an Olympic year. All right, let's move on to level F. What are you going to need for this? So if you already, just like in level E, if you already have the Right Start math set, you will only need the book bundle. Okay, but if you're new to Right Start, then you'll need both the book bundle and the math set, remembering that the math set is a one-time purchase per family. All right, let's look at pacing for this level. Level F is a little different because there are actually 150 lessons. And if you want to stick to completing 4 lessons a week, that's fine. It will take you 37.5 weeks. Okay. However, there is a way to get it into 35 weeks. And you can mess with this, right? Maybe you want to go for 38 weeks or 34 weeks. You can figure out the math on that one. But here's an example. So if you do 4 to 5 lessons per week, you can finish it in 35 weeks. And actually what that looks like is you're only doing that 5th lesson every for a total of 6 weeks. So out of your whole school year, you can do 4 lessons a week. And then for 6 weeks, you have to do a 5th lesson in order to squeeze it into 35 weeks. All right. So here's a list of the many concepts covered in level E. And obviously, we go way beyond this as well. The order of operations, multiplication and division with larger numbers, square numbers and square roots, expanded notation and exponents, fractions and decimals, including adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing them, averaging and rounding, especially when it comes to decimals, because we've already covered averaging and rounding in other levels, but in this one, we're really focused on what do you do with a decimal? How do you round that? Okay. The coordinate system and graphing, including negative numbers, converting units. So for example, if you want to go from centimeters to inches, right? Miles to kilometers, those kinds of things. We cover area and volume of solids. And the students learn how to work with formulas. Oftentimes, they're actually creating the formula that they will end up using, which is super helpful to leading to understanding, right? If you could hand a formula to your student, they may memorize it, but they're not necessarily going to know why it works. But in this book, they will be developing formulas. So because they're developing it, they know how and why it works. Okay. Some scenic byway stops would be really engaging and fantastically interesting concepts, which are covered, like solving for the unknown. Doesn't that sound like algebra? It is. All right, so we will be doing that using the math balance. You can see the equation here, 5x plus 2 equals 3 plus 4 plus 10. The x is the unknown, and how you represent that on the math balance is to hang the weights on the second side, the back side of the math balance. So that's super cool way to solve for the unknown. We'll also teach the kids how to scale a figure. So from small to large or from large to small using their geometric drawing tools. We'll cover percentages again and probability. We're going to learn how to multiply fractions using an area model. Looks like this. This is super important because yes, we could tell the students how to do the algorithm, just multiply across and you get your answer. But oftentimes students are wondering, why in the world am I getting a smaller number when I'm multiplying? My whole life, multiplying has been giving me a larger number, right? Like 5 times 4 is 20. But when we're multiplying fractions, that's not how it works, right? So this area model really helps the kids understand how is it working. And at the end of these instructions, they figure out how they could do it without drawing the boxes and dividing the boxes in half or thirds or fourths or whatever they're doing. So that's really cool. They come up with the formula on how to solve multiplication problems using fractions. Alrighty. Another great thing that we do is simplifying fractions using the multiplication table, which we will talk about shortly. All right, let's move on to the third book. This is fractions in 42 and a half days. Okay. It is part of our tutoring series. And I just want to back up for a second. And before we dive into just the fractions, I want to talk about the tutoring series. It is really for those students who are 2 or more years behind in math. And if your student is just 1 year or even less than 1 year behind, whatever level they test into, you can go ahead and go into that. So for example, if you have a 5th grader who tests into 4th grade, into level E, go ahead and let your student work through level E first, because we cover a whole plethora of mathematical concepts, not just arithmetic. And so the kids who end up using the tutoring books, it's just focused on arithmetic. So they're kind of missing out on all of those really fun and interesting concepts. Now, there's a reason why we do that. But if your student is only a year behind, go ahead and let them start at the level that they tested into. If they are 2 or more years behind, for example, if you have a 7th grader who tests into level E, Then you should consider using the multiplication and division tutoring books, book 1 and or 2, and the fraction book, okay, to just catch them up faster. So like the other tutoring books, there is a lesson and a game every day. And then every once in a while, there's just a game day. Okay, let me go back for a second. Let's see. I want to make sure I don't miss anything for you. Oh yeah, unlike other tutoring books, however, we do have worksheets for this book. Okay, it's rather short. It's not an overwhelming workbook by any stretch of the imagination, but there are worksheets available for this book, whereas the other tutoring books do not have workbooks. All righty. So what would you need for the fraction tutoring book? If you are just starting out, then you're going to want what's on the left-hand side of this picture, and that's the tutoring kit. You'll get the lessons, workbooks, fraction chart, and puzzle pieces, and then 3 decks of cards, the basic number cards, the multiplication deck, and the fractions deck, so that you can play all the cards. If you already have the Right Start Math set, then you just obviously need to buy the books. Okay. One thing I did want to point out, and this is true for both our regular curriculum, so levels A through H, okay, or the tutoring fraction book, that is that we use a linear chart, a linear fraction chart. It is so much easier to understand how fractions work and to picture them when you're using the linear chart. So it really beats those circle pie chart models. So I really would like to emphasize that you really do want to use the linear chart. All righty. So here are some of the concepts, not all, that are covered in our tutoring fractions book. So what is a fraction? You know, start at the very beginning. How to make one, how to compare fractions, what are equivalent fractions, how do you simplify fractions? And remember I mentioned before when I was talking about level F, that you can simplify fractions using a multiplication chart. Well, sure enough, we will teach you how to do that in the tutoring book as well. It's a very fun and easy way to understand how simplifying fractions works. We cover proper and improper fractions, and using the linear chart is a great way to do this. You can see right away, if you look at that top line that is not highlighted as dark, the more pinkish line, where you have 3/3, that's 1, and then you have 2 more thirds. Well, how many thirds is that? Well, that's 5/3. It could also be written as 1 and 2/3, right? So this is super easy way to just see what proper and improper fractions are. We deal with mixed numbers, greatest common factor, the lowest common multiple or the least common multiple. We also cover addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of fractions. And then we touch on, very briefly at the end, percentages and sale price problems. Okay? All righty. So please remember that these tutoring books they just cover arithmetic, okay? Not geometry and other mathematical concepts. But they are super important and an excellent way to fill in gaps if your students have gaps, so that they can build a solid foundation for future math concepts. The way I like to talk about it with my students is to say, you know, your math education so far is kind of like a piece of Swiss cheese. There's holes, those are the things you don't know, and then there's solid parts, those are the things you do know. And we're just going to come in and fill in those holes so that you don't have them, so that you can build that solid foundation. All righty. So I hope you have a better idea of what is covered in levels E, F, and the tutoring fraction book. If you would like to contact us for more information, please feel free to call us or to write to us at info@rightstartmath.com. If you just feel stuck or you need some ideas or whatever, we're happy to provide those, okay, and to talk to you about that. So do you have any questions at this point? I'd be happy to answer any questions now. Go ahead and unmute yourself or Marn, if there's any chats.
I have a question.
Okay.
Can I- Yeah. Hi, my name is Meg, and I'm actually this is for my 8-year-old daughter. So she just finished my. We are on fractions right now, and but she has some issues with division, so I'm still working on it. I do have the whole kit, the games and the cards and everything. I've been doing
Uh-huh.
with that. So for the books, you would recommend I take the tutoring book and ENF? Is that what you would recommend?
No, I wouldn't. Now, how old did you say she is?
8 years old.
8. Oh, 8. Yeah. You've got
Oh,
plenty of
sorry. No,
time.
no, no, not that's my younger one. The elder one is 11 years old.
Okay. And who is the one that you're concerned about right now?
11 years old.
11. Okay. I still wouldn't worry too much. So you can do either. Have you given your kids the placement test?
No, I haven't done that. No.
Okay. Marn, could you stick into chat where to find that placement test? I forgot to put
Yes.
it into the presentation.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Okay.
you can find the placement test. I would do the comprehensive placement test actually,
Okay.
just
Got
to
it.
see where the holes might be.
Okay.
If she is struggling with fractions, you can choose to do E and F. I think that would give her a more solid math foundation. But if you're just concerned about fractions, then you can go ahead and use the tutoring book. It
Got
will cover, it's basically all the fraction lessons, or a lot of them, pulled out from the different levels, right?
Got
So
it.
you will find these fraction lessons in the levels E and F and before. But if you
Okay.
just want to concentrate, like over the summer, maybe you
Right.
just want to work on fractions.
Right.
That's when I
Right.
would use the tutoring book. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
but it won't have as many tests or practice available in ENF. Is that what it is? Or does it cover exactly the same material as ENF?
It covers the same material as levels A through F.
Okay.
Just a little bit more compressed, and it has more games. So it
Got
has more practice,
Got
just on fractions.
Okay. So the
Yeah.
game book and the kit I already have. So do I need, so if it is like, the game book, what it comes and I have the cards, we started doing that. They love the cards.
Yes, they're
They love
fantastic,
it.
aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so what you would want is the lesson, if you're going to go this way and just, focus just on fractions,
Yeah.
the tutoring book has different games as well that aren't in the math card games book. Some of them are and some of them aren't.
Okay, got it.
So it's
That's
kind of
fine.
nice the way it's set up, because you have a lesson and a game right there.
Got it.
One lesson. The next day you have a lesson and a game.
Got
So
it.
it's a little bit, I think, easier to maneuver because it's right
Got it.
there. You don't have to go to another book
Got
to
it.
find the
Okay. Makes sense.
description.
Okay. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Meg, for your question. Anybody else?
There was one question in the chat is, can you please reshare the slides with the overview of E and F and scenic routes?
Okay, this presentation is recorded, as are all of them. So I think it would be easiest for you if you just wait for the recording to be sent to you, unless there's a real important reason why you're not going to be able to see that, maybe. Is there any comment there?
Not after that yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I don't mind going back. I just think it would be easier for you to get the recording and push pause.
And they will be, the recording links will be sent out later today.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Let me see.
Are you
There
seeing the
was one
questions?
for Larissa.
Okay.
Where did she go? Okay, my 10-year-old daughter struggles with multiplication facts. She learned to skip counting songs. Yeah, that's a struggle in school in 2nd grade, and continues to sing those songs when trying to solve math equations. Yeah, unfortunate, huh? The problem with that is when you learn a math concept through song, then you have to go to your language part of your brain and pull it out. It's kind of like having to sing the ABC song in order to alphabetize. So yeah, it does kind of mess with their ability to recall. I would focus on the games. Some real simple games are multiplication memory, for example. That is a really easy one to pull out and play. And you can work on each of the fact families individually. So like we're working on nines, you can just work on nines, right? So that's a real super easy game to play. And then once she's more confident, not 100%, but more confident with all of the multiplication facts, then you could play a game like Ring Around the Products, where there's a bunch of facts mixed up together, and she's going to identify, what two basic numbers make another number. For example, if they see the multiplication card 54, well, then she'll know that 9 times 6 is 54, right? So I would focus a lot on the games, and probably just not even mention the song. If you see that she's kind of singing it in her head, say, hey, could we focus on this instead, right? All right, let's see. Anybody else?
Yeah, there was a question from Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth. And thank you, Dancing Penguin. I'm glad you liked the presentation. I've been working with my son, Elizabeth says, age 10, grade 4, on multiplying fractions. We are in book E. I recall my math teacher advising us to consider the multiplication symbol as the word of. Yep. I've been explaining it that way, as in 1/2 times 34 is like 1/2 of 34, 3/4. Do you think this works okay with this program? Yes, except I will tell you a different way to do it. The reason I ask is that I know in my daughter's book, it advises not to say take away or for minus. Yeah, very good. There's nothing wrong with equating of with the multiplication sign. But what I would do is I would say, this is actually really helpful when you get to dividing fractions, but for multiplication of fractions. So if you see that problem, 1/2 times 3/4, you could say read it backwards, 3/4 of 1/2. And make sure that he's drawing the boxes and dividing them, right? Even if he goes beyond where the book stops, if he's really benefiting from that, then I would go ahead and continue until he really has it solid. The reason why I say 3/4 of 1/2 is because when you get to dividing fractions, say it's 1 divided by 1/4, okay? You'll read it backwards. You'll say 1/4. How many 1/4 are in 1, right? So if you start reading it from right to left instead of left to right in multiplying, you'll get to it in division and go, oh my goodness, that clears everything up. So that's just one tip, but there is nothing wrong with saying of in relationship to multiplication. That's really good.
Another question about what to do this summer.
Yeah, yes, exactly. This is a perfect opportunity to use the tutoring books, because they're, although they cover things very thoroughly, they feel lighter than a more comprehensive curriculum, right? So if your child is going back to school in the fall and you just want to solidify, say, the multiplication facts or fractions, yeah, by all means, use the tutoring books. I think that those are very helpful for that. I would not try to complete the whole level over the summer. If you want some fun activities that your student wouldn't normally get in school, you could do some of the geometric drawing from those levels. But if you really want to focus and solidify the concepts, I would just use the tutoring books and get through as much as you can over the summer. Yeah, maybe, 2 to 3 days a week would be plenty. I wouldn't ruin their whole summer by doing school, but yeah, just, a few days here and there, and then playing the games. That's really a great way to solidify the facts. All right. Anybody else? You're welcome, Elizabeth. Did we get everybody?
I think so.
If there's anybody else who wants to just, unmute and ask a question, feel free. Otherwise, you can call us or email us. Okay, it looks like everybody is satisfied. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you joining my presentation. That's awesome. And I hope that you have a good rest of your day. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.